Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a timeless story and looking at it through a really fascinating modern lens, cognitive science. It's a story that shows how the simple act of paying attention can change not just what we see, but who we actually become.
So we're not just going to retell an old tale here. No, we're going to unpack something much deeper about human nature. It's this idea that how you pay attention, whether you're narrow and rigid or wide and compassionate, literally shapes your reality, your relationships, even your sense of what's right and wrong.
And really, this question right here is the heart of the whole thing. This ancient story from the Gospel of John. It forces us to look this question right in the eye. It's this incredible moment where justice, mercy, and truth all seem to be in conflict, and we're left asking which one really matters most.
All right, so the story kicks off in the temple courtyard. Picture this. It's a very public space, and a super dramatic confrontation is about to go down. And right from the get-go, we're shown these two totally different, almost opposite ways of seeing the exact same event. So on one side, you've got the Pharisees. They come in with the letter of the law, right? To them, this is all about rules. It's a case to be solved. But then on the other side, you have Jesus, and he's all about the spirit of the law. He sees a human life that needs to be put back together. So yeah, let's really dive into this clash of visions. Okay, first up, let's really get inside the heads of the accusers. To understand why they did what they did, we have to look at how they were thinking, and maybe more importantly, what their way of thinking was totally missing. And the original text is super clear about this. It says they were testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. So, their vision was already boxed in by fear, by this need for control, this need to be right. Justice? Nah, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to win.
And this kind of mindset, it actually has a name. Neuroscientist Iain McGilchrist would call this a left hemisphere style of attention. The best way to think about it is it's a way of seeing that just zooms in on abstract categories and black and white rules, and it strips away all the human context. So to them, this woman wasn't a person. She was just a label, adulterer.
And this way of seeing, it relies on two specific kinds of knowledge. The philosopher John Vervaeke breaks this down for us. First, they had what's called propositional knowledge. They knew that the law said what it said, the facts. And second, they had procedural knowledge. They knew how to carry out the punishment. They had the facts and the process, and that's it. They had it down cold.
But here's where it gets really dangerous. When you only have those two ways of knowing, and you filter everything through that super narrow, laser-focused attention, while the Pharisees turn the law into a weapon. They just completely miss the whole point, the deeper purpose of creating a just and, a flourishing community.
Okay, so now let's flip the coin and look at Jesus' response. It just paints a totally different picture of what wisdom looks like. I mean, his approach wasn't just clever. It came from a fundamentally different way of seeing the world, and more importantly, seeing the person right in front of him.
So in complete contrast, Jesus is operating from what McGilchrist would call a right hemisphere style of attention. Now, this is a kind of awareness that's open, it's relational, and it's all about context. It's not that he ignores the facts, not at all, but he sees them as part of a much bigger living picture. He sees the person before he sees the problem.
And this just perfectly illustrates the difference, doesn't it? Where the Pharisees saw a case to be solved, a rule to be enforced, Jesus saw a human being who needed to be restored. His attention wasn't on some abstract idea of sin, but on the real, living person standing right there.
And he's able to do this because he brings in two deeper forms of knowing. First, there's perspectival knowing. This is the wisdom to see into a situation, not just at it. He gets the woman's fear, the Pharisees' motives, the tension in the crowd, the whole scene. And then there's participatory knowing, which is all about being in tune with the real purpose of the law, which at its heart is about life, not death.
So here's what's so brilliant. Unlike the Pharisees, Jesus doesn't just throw out the first two ways of knowing. He absolutely knows the law, that's propositional, and he knows how it's supposed to work, that's procedural. But he integrates them with that deeper wisdom that sees the full picture and connects with a higher purpose. And that integration, well, that's the hallmark of true wisdom.
So you have this huge clash of visions, right? This conflict between two totally different ways of seeing and knowing. And it all comes to a head in one of the most famous, most tense moments in the entire story.
The accusers, they're demanding an answer. You can feel the momentum building. And what does Jesus do? He just stoops down and starts writing on the ground. This simple, quiet action is just genius. It's a total pattern interrupt. It breaks their aggressive rhythm, forces everyone to just pause, and it completely shifts the dynamic of the whole scene. Suddenly, everyone's attention is drawn downward, away from the big show. And then, after that powerful silence, he speaks. And this one sentence, it's an absolute masterstroke. He doesn't dismiss the law, not at all, but he brilliantly reframes the entire situation by adding a new condition for carrying it out.
Just think about what this statement does. He's not rejecting the law. He's actually revealing its true meaning. He takes that harsh spotlight of judgment, turns it away from the woman, and shines it right back on the accusers. He forces them to see that the law applies to everyone, including the people who want to be the enforcers.
You know, this is so much more than just a clever story. It's a really profound lesson about how our own minds work. It shows us that how we choose to pay attention, it has real, serious moral consequences.
This table really lays it all out, summarizing the two opposing worldviews we've been talking about. On one side, you have that narrow left hemisphere attention that's all about rules and control, and the outcome is judgment. But on the other side, you have that wide right hemisphere awareness that brings everything together, motivated by compassion, and the outcome there? Mercy and truth.
So what this story is really showing us is that our emotional state, our moral state, it directly impacts what we're even capable of seeing. The fear and the need for control that the Pharisees had, it literally tightened their vision. It made them blind to the human being right in front of them. But Jesus' compassion did the opposite. It widened his vision, and that's what allowed him to see the whole truth of the situation.
And this isn't just some dusty old story. It is a timeless lesson for our own lives, right now. The habits of attention that we build day after day, well, they end up determining how we get into arguments, how we treat people, how we solve problems. It literally shapes the kind of people we are becoming.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to take away from this whole story. In your own life, when you're facing a problem, a conflict, maybe at work or at home, what's your first instinct? Do you see a case that needs to be solved? Or do you see a person who needs to be restored? Because how you answer that, well, it just might change everything.